How you doing, rock fans? This is Steve Brown from Trixter and Tokyo Motor Fist, and you are listening to rockmusicstar.com. Turn it up loud.
Welcome to the glam-metal interview series, presented by rockmusicstar.com, with host Thomas S. Orwat Jr.
Hello, this is Thomas from rockmusicstar.com with episode number 3 of the Glam Metal interview series. It's June 30th, 2020, and I just had a great conversation with guitarist-songwriter Steve Brown. During our conversation, Steve talks in great detail about not only the new Tokyo Motor Fist record, but also his time in Def Leppard as a replacement guitarist and his band Trixter, which had great success in 1990-91, dominating the MTV playlist. Steve is currently promoting his band Tokyo Motor Fist, who will be releasing their second album entitled Lions on July 10th. So here he is, glam metal heads, Mr. Steve Brown. We are on the phone with Steve Brown of the Tokyo Motor Fist, Trixter, and also part-time Def Leppard member. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic here in northern New Jersey. The sun is almost shining, and it's summertime, my favorite time of the year. So I'm loving life under these crazy circumstances that we're living in.
Yeah, that was my next question, of course. I mean, I'm getting sick of asking everyone this question about how they're doing during COVID-19, but how are you holding up?
I'm holding up really, really well, man. Luckily, I have a beautiful family, great wife and 2 beautiful daughters, and we love each other and we have a great time together. So being stuck in the house together for 3 months hasn't been a bad thing. And, again, I have a great house here up in Jersey, and I have a great studio. So I've been extremely busy in the recording studio. I'm always busy, but it seemed like when the pandemic broke out, all my musician friends and some people that I didn't know were calling me and emailing and texting, sending me files. They wanted me to mix their records and master their records. And so I've been extremely busy and still am, man. I've been digitizing all my old analog, the original Trixter demos from back in 1986, all the analog 8-track tapes, cassette tapes, just getting all the busy work stuff done that I normally couldn't do if I was out touring all the time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And on Friday, July 10th, is going to be a real special day for you. I mean, you're going to have your 50th birthday 3 days later. That's got to be pretty cool also.
Yeah, don't remind me, but yes, we're celebrating, man. It's a big year, and under the shitty circumstances that the country and the world is living in, I'm a very positive guy, so we're going to definitely celebrate. I know what you're talking about. July 10th, the release of Tokyo Motor Fist Lions. Can't wait.
Yeah, I've been checking out the record. It's really a great record. Consists of 11 tracks of amazing guitar work, some very catchy melodic songs. How do you think the band has changed since your first record that came out in 2017?
Well, I think the band has a hell of a lot more confidence. There was certainly no lack of confidence, and we've all known each other for over 30 years, and we're like family. These guys are like my brothers because we all grew up basically in the same part of the world on the East Coast, New York, New Jersey. Chuck, Ted, and I are from northern New Jersey, and Greg Smith's from Long Island. So we're all close to each other, and we've known each other since we were kids, really, and so it makes it, when we started the band, when Frontiers approached me about doing a thing with Ted, it was so natural for me to ask Greg and Chuck to be involved because I love those guys. I love the way they play, and I knew they would bring something tremendous to the table. And here we have Tokyo Motor Fist. Second record, again, confidence. The worldwide response to the debut was just incredible. Everybody loves the band. We made a great record, and all that everybody needs to know is all we each try to do, and myself especially, is all we try to do is do our best every time. Every time I make a record, I'm not here phoning anything in, and likewise with the other guys. We're here to do our best. And this record, I think we've outdone ourselves 100 times over, because even, I'm a perfectionist and I never get near where I want to be with perfection, but this is the closest that I've gotten to it. And I'm proud to say that I honestly, truly believe this is my best artistic work to date, and I'm just so proud of it, and I can't wait for the world to hear it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a really strong record. The song Youngblood, Around Midnight, Mean It, those are great songs. Can we talk about Youngblood for a bit? Can you just tell me what the process was behind that song?
Yeah, well, an interesting process and an interesting story was that, PJ Farley and myself from Trixter, we play in another band. We play in a side band with Eric Martin from Mr. Big. And we'd been talking, we've been doing this thing, Eric Martin and Trixter, for a couple of years now, and we've toured all over the world, and people love it. So it was a natural progression for us to think about making a record together. Well, one of the first ideas I came up with and songs I came up with was what is now Youngblood. And, the title comes from Eric, because Eric used to always call me, anytime he would try to give me advice or whatnot, he would say to me, hey, Youngblood, you got to do this. Hey, Youngblood. So that's where I came up with the title. And it was the song was originally supposed to be for, this Eric Martin Trixter thing that we've been doing. But Eric just seemed to be busy with other things. So I was like, all right, well, that's what we're doing then. And I'm using this for Tokyo Motor Fist. So I finished all the lyrics and the melodies. I had all the music done, what I sent to Eric originally. I had all the music and the melodies done. And I sent it to Ted, and I said, what do you think of this? And he was like, this is the best song I've ever heard in my life. He was so blown away, and in his enthusiasm confirmed to me that we're ready to make, a new Tokyo Motor Fist record. And that's usually what happens in all my projects. It takes one song for me to get that itch. Once I get something that I knew, and I knew once I did like the basic work track for Youngblood, when I did that guitar intro and came up with the chorus, I knew I had something special.
So that was the first song that you wrote for this record?
It was. First song, and how fitting is it that it's the first song on the album?
Wow, it's a great song, and I love the video. I know that you probably it was probably difficult to make the video under these circumstances, but it's really a great video.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, totally. I mean, actually, it was one of the easiest videos for us to make, because we had to all shoot ourselves in quarantine, and so it was easy. I had my daughter come down in my studio, and I, set up a little backdrop and just did my thing and recorded 2 takes of it, and that's what pretty much everybody else did. I mean, Ted filmed his video on his phone, and the other guys filmed, likewise. We all did sort of the same thing. And we brought in Frontiers, brought in the great Wayne Joyner, who just did like the new Striper video. He does a ton of work for them. He did all the, the animation stuff and put it together. And he did a really, really cool thing under the circumstances. I definitely would have liked to have done a real video with all of us, the band, together, kind of like what we did on the last record with Picking Up the Pieces. But this is what we're living in now. And then Around Midnight with the animated video, how cool is that? I love it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about next, was Around Midnight. That is a very cool video.
It is. It's fun, and what's great, I've been telling people, is that, the first Trixter record, of course, we know the album cover, the comic book, the animation that the great Neil Adams did for it. But I never had an animated video in my whole career. So 30 years later of being a national act, I finally get my first animated video with Tokyo Motor Fist, Around Midnight. So it's just so cool. And we actually, on a side note, we actually shot some, again, quarantine footage of us playing. But the people at Frontiers and Wayne, they just thought that the storyline in the video, it just looked cooler as a fully animated video.
Yeah, and in addition, the album artwork is epic. That's one of the coolest covers I've seen. Can you give us a little bit background on who the artist was that designed it?
Yeah, well, it's this guy, Andre, who's in Europe, and he does work for Frontiers. But, it was my concept, when I came up with the title, and it was after I came up with the song, the title track on the record lines, I knew that there was something very special, and just like what you said, epic. And those are the exact words I said to Andre, the art director. I said, I want this to look timeless, classic, epic. And I gave him parameters. I told him, I sent him some pictures of some lions, and then I said, well, I want to make the lion almost kind of a hybrid of, that it's kind of got some motor in it, some engine stuff, to tie in the Tokyo Motor Fist name. And he just knocked it out of the park. And it's, going. Frontiers is known for their rich, lush album covers like they've done with other things. We did that with Trixter on the 2015 Human Era album. We had a really, beautiful colors. And, I like it in the sense that to me, like Human Era and the Lions record, those are things where if you take the logos away and like printed them on a canvas, it's art. It's not just an album cover, it's a piece of art. And to me, that's timeless.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another thing that Frontiers Records is known for is putting together bands, supergroups, and just having them release a record. And you really don't see much touring, and it's kind of frustrating for like fans who really fall in love with this type of music. Now, I know Tokyo Motor Fist has played some gigs before, and I know right now nobody's playing, but are there plans for the band to actually go on a proper tour?
Well, I mean, proper touring is a very, very expensive proposition, and it really doesn't exist for bands like us. I mean, shit, if my friends Def Leppard invited us to go out on the stadium tour, I think we would jump at an opportunity like that, but that's really it. I mean, you have to look at it. We also all have our own day jobs with other bands that we play with and whatnot. Chuck Bergi is Billy Joel's drummer. That's one of the greatest gigs in the world to have. So it would have to be a really good and lucrative situation for us to be able to tour. But with that being said, Tokyo Motor Fist is a real, genuine band. We're not one of these Frontiers or whatever labels, fake super group that just make a record. Nobody in the band writes the songs. They have a producer write all the songs and stuff. This is a real deal band, and it shows in the music, and it shows even more in our live performances. So we had a bunch of things booked. Luckily we were able to get in the Monsters of Rock cruise. We had 2 fantastic shows on the cruise. And we were able to play one of the new songs, so we actually promoted the new record way before it was released. We played Decadence on 10th Street live, and it went over incredibly. So we're just so psyched that we were able to do that. But we had a bunch of shows booked. We had Japan dates, tentative Japan dates for November. So everything's just postponed now. I mean, the plan is, for me, Tokyo Motor Fist is like one of my main priorities. So the plan is that if the offers come in and we have a new booking agent in Europe that's booking us, trying to pitch us for all festivals and stuff, we want to do it. Everybody loves this band wholeheartedly. Yeah,
that'd be absolutely great. I think you guys would go over, especially with these songs, it would go over really, really well.
Yeah, and what's cool, I don't know if you've seen any of the clips of Tokyo Motor Fist live, but we do a really cool show that we celebrate Tokyo Motor Fist, and we also include all the bands that we've been involved with. So we do a couple of Trixter songs that I sing. We do a couple Danger Danger songs. We do a Ted Nugent song. We do a Rainbow song. So we give a tip of the hat to the bands that we were in or are in and associated with. And the fans really, really appreciate it, as do we.
Yeah, with all the members being in various bands like that, I mean, you have a great set list, and plus you could do like 90 minutes without a problem.
Oh, without a doubt. Now the good news is, with 2 fantastic records under our belt, we don't even have to play the other songs, but we still like to, because the fans really, really enjoy that. I've been to where, I've gone and seen certain bands, that are like so-called supergroups, and they just totally ignore their past. And though it's great to see them doing new stuff, man, it's really nice when those type of bands bring out a hit. I remember when I saw the Winery Dogs a couple of years ago, and they did Shy Boy, and I was just, I thought that was so fucking cool. And I just, I think you always have to again, raise a glass and toast to your past and give the fans really what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about the dates that you played with Def Leppard in May of 2018. I happened to be at one of them. I was at Buffalo, and
Yeah, excellent.
yeah, and I couldn't keep my eyes off you the entire time. I thought it was just fascinating watching you come in with 1 day's notice and being able to just to nail Phil Collins parts like that. How how did you do it?
Well, this goes back to 1987. The Def Leppard guys are like family to me. Phil Collins is one of my best friends and like a brother to me, like a godfather. And so, long story short, when Vivian got diagnosed with cancer in 2013, the relationship was there. And of course, Phil was a huge fan of some of my other projects outside of Trixter, 40-Foot Ringo, which him and Joe Elliott loved. And we actually were going to almost we were supposed to tour with Def Leppard. We were going to open up for them. But they loved my Stereo Fallout record, so they knew. And the reason that I got the Def Leppard gig more than guitar playing and, let's say, stage presence was my vocals. Because, as most people, I don't know if they know, but they're going to know now that Def Leppard they don't use any tapes with their backing vocals. There's nothing in the can, if you will, and it's all live, and it's extremely, extremely important to them. Like Joe Elliott told me when I did my first gigs with them in 2014, he said to me right before we went on stage, he said, "Steve, I don't care what you do with your guitar, just make sure you're there and get all those vocal parts." And, so that right there was, wow. I was like, wow, this is really serious. I knew it. I knew how serious the vocals were, but for him to say that to me, and luckily I have that kind of Mutt Lange, scratchy voice to be able to do the, step inside, walk this way, photograph. They're the way they sing. It's a very, very unique thing, and there's a lot of intricacies to it that most people don't know. But for me, it comes naturally because the good news is when you fill in for a band, it's great that you're filling in for probably one of your favorite bands that you've grew up with, loving their music, and so that helps. But how did I be prepared to fill in for Phil? That was a rough one because all the shows I did with Vivian, that was months in advance that I was preparing for that. I also went out on tour with them, with Kiss and Def Leppard when we did the tour in 2014. So I would rehearse, I would do sound checks, and I had a lot of time to get ready. This was less than 24 hours notice. And so I just had to change my brain because I had to sing Phil's parts, which are all different, and I had to sing Vivian's. But, I'd lived and breathed Def Leppard for the last 7 years since I got called in 2013. So, it was just a matter of doing it, and it's what I do. Man, it's kind of like my new calling card. I did the same thing with Dennis DeYoung, formerly singer of Styx. I did that with his band as well. And it's just something that I can do, man. You need a guitar player who can learn 16 songs and sing them all and, put on a show. And the key of it all is not looking like a fill-in. That you look, and that's very important to Def Leppard. And that's why I'm always, no matter what the tour they do, I'm always there. I'm part of the machinery, and I'm part of the crew of Def Leppard for life. So it's it's an honor. And again, it goes back to, they're like family to me. So I'm always there to help my family.
Yeah, I just like I said, when I was watching that show, I just could not believe how flawless you were able just to step into that role like that, and knowing that you replaced Vivian in the past, but you were playing Phil's parts this time. That's what made it so incredible, and I just have to give you all the credit in the world for doing that. I mean, I've always respected you as a musician. I've been following your career since 1990 when you were with Trixter, but this just brought it up to like a whole another level of respect for you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And yeah, it was one of those things, and the coolest memory that I have of it, one of the coolest, besides playing the shows, of course, which were great. And that Buffalo show, there's some great videos on YouTube of that some people took. And long story short, the coolest thing was before Phil left to go home to take care of what he needed to, he told the guys, he said, "There's no one on earth that could do this but Steve." And that was a true testament to our friendship and, his trust in me, that he knew that I would not let him down, and most importantly, the Def Leppard organization down.
Yeah, and you certainly did. I would like to just spend a couple moments since you know the Def Leppard catalog so well. If you could just comment on each of their guitars and just tell me what you think is unique about them. We'll start with Phil Collen. What do you think is unique of him as a guitarist?
Well, I think, first off, you got to go with he's a phenomenal player, and he's written some iconic, memorable guitar solos. You take the guitar solo for Photograph. I put that right up there with Living on a Prayer, Richie Sambora's solo in Living on a Prayer, and Neil Schon, Don't Stop Believing. It's one of those iconic hard rock guitar solos that you can't forget, like Jump by Van Halen, Eddie's solo in that. It's just, and Phil is known for, he plays, when he does his solos, whether it's Rock of Ages, Photograph, Let's Get Rocked, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. It's that perfect marriage of melody, great phrasing, and just a little bit of flash to make, just to make you go, wow, that's exciting, as opposed to just some guitar players who just totally just wank off and say nothing. For me, the most important part in what Phil does is when he does guitar solos, he says something. And it's most of the time, from all the solos I've played, they're perfect for the songs, iconic, memorable guitar solos.
Yeah, those are great observations. What about Vivian Campbell? This was the first time that you were playing with him live on stage back in 2018. What do you think of him? What makes him unique as a guitarist?
Well, Viv, God, go back to Dio. I was a huge Vivian fan when he was the guitar player in Dio, Holy Diver and Last in Line. Those are massively influential records to me. And I loved Vivian when he was in Dio. He was a huge influence because he was so young and he was very raw. The way he played, it wasn't technically perfect. And he still plays that way. He's very much influenced by Gary Moore. So, he does a great job doing the Steve Clark stuff. And when Steve passed and Vivian came in, he does Listen to the Solo on Paper Sun. That's a phenomenal rock guitar solo. Again, a memorable, great guitar solo, unique phrasing, a little bit of rip, a little bit of tearing, a little bit of speed, and it's like perfect. And Vivian's just great. He's a phenomenal player, and his Dio reputation speaks, his catalog with Dio speaks for itself. He's never done much writing wise with Def Leppard. He's basically covering Steve Clark's parts, but he does a hell of a job. And I loved playing, like I said, when the 1 year, 2015, I played Paper Sun with them. And that was a song that I think Vivian actually had a hand in writing as well. And it's great.
All right, let's. What do you think about Steve Clark?
Steve Clark, God bless him, and he's a huge influence on me because I discovered Def Leppard in 1980 when On Through the Night came out. So I was very much in tune with him and Pete Willis for that matter. But Steve was very unique, and I learned a lot about him. Luckily, I got to spend some time with him before he passed, when I was with my friendship with Phil. Usually anytime Phil was around, Steve was there. So I got to spend some quality time with Steve. And he wasn't much of a talker, but he's a very unique player. His writing, very unorthodox guitar parts, stuff he did like on Gods of War, do, 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 do. He would come up with these weird inversions, Switch 625. That's all Steve Clark, as far as the writing of that. And, just a legend, and of course his performance aspect. How fucking cool did he look in the white suit, skinny as a rail, his guitar down to his knees. With the cigarette dangling out his mouth. He was like the blonde Jimmy Page.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, for the first couple Def Leppard and some of Pyromania, Pete Willis. What do you think of his style and his playing?
Pete's phenomenal, and you can't, Pete wrote a lot of that stuff. He wrote a lot of those riffs and those songs, and yeah, just incredible. I love his the solos on Rock Brigade. I mean, the early Pete Willis stuff that I love is, like the first album, first and second, On Through the Night and High and Dry. And Pete's guitar work, you can really hear it. He's got I love that he had the Michael Schenker thing going on, and again, a phenomenal guitar player, and, sadly his demons got the best of him, but, he certainly laid the foundation there. And, I still love, anytime I hear the old records, like I hear his playing, and, especially I love what he did on the song Rock Brigade.
Yeah. And, finally, Steve, I want to, spend some time talking about Trixter. You released your first record in May of 1990. You guys were formed in 1983. It took a while before you were signed, but you were like, each year building up a little bit and building up a great base and opening up for some really well-known bands. What was it like recording that debut record?
It was like going to music. It was going to making record college, record production college for us, or high school for that matter. We just graduated high school. PJ actually finished his senior year of high school making the record, so that was pretty cool for him. But it was, dude, it was incredible. It was every emotion, every mental thing. It was hard work because we had never made a record before, and we didn't have a mentor like some bands do, who kind of take them in the studio and teach them all the tricks. And so by the time they get into making a record, they know all the things about, how you sing perfectly in tune with headphones. And it was a lot of overwhelming things. And it was a lot of, for me as a guitar player, a lot of lessons to learn about how to structure guitar solos, but incredible. Wow, we were 18-year-old kids, and, we got to sign a major record label. We made our record out in California at some of the greatest legendary studios, Sound City, The Village. We were living in Hollywood. It was just, it was one of those things you see in the movies, but, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making that record. And, and of course, when it became successful, it was like, wow, we finally got validation. And, for all of its technical perfection that it lacked, it made up for 100 times over in heart and soul. Because the one thing about Trixter was I was writing songs about the life we were living. It was real. It was real stories. Only Young Ones, Give It to Me Good, One in a Million, Bad Girl. We were living those stories in those songs because we were teenagers and we were young men. And, as opposed to, let's say, some of these older rock and rollers who were in their late 20s or early mid 30s, and they're writing songs about partying and doing this, when meanwhile they're going back to their hotel room after the show and, calling their wife and then talking to their 3 kids on the phone, and, and calling their accountant, if you know what I mean. So we were, that was the difference. But man, it was just every dream I had came true 100 times over because of Trixter. And I'm talking to you right now because of Trixter. So, my baby that I created in 1983 has just, provided me with a life that most people dream of. And I'm very grateful and appreciative of that.
Yeah, that record actually really did well. It ended up I think it peaked at 28th on the Billboard charts. I mean, that's great for a debut record. You guys had everything going for you. You guys had the image, you had the songs, you had the major record label. I mean, you had a lot going for you. You ended up going on a great tour in the summer of 1991 with Warrant and Firehouse, the Blood, Sweat, and Beers tour. What do you remember back from that particular tour?
Well, I mean, that was the best of times. We were at like 750,000 records, number 1 videos. And we started this tour. We had previously toured with like Poison and Scorpions and Poison and Scorpions and Stryper and Don Dokken. But by the time we got to Warrant, we met guys that were closer to our age. So the 3 bands, Trixter, Warrant, and Firehouse, we all became brothers. And it was like a traveling frat house. We went to every city, tore it up. We partied our balls off. We rocked our balls off and just had the time of our lives. And it was a very, very successful tour. It was the top 10. It was the top 10 grossing tour for Polestar magazine for 1991. And nobody thought it was going to be like that. And it just kept gaining steam. And, I still see the Warrant and Firehouse guys all the time. And it's, I'm grateful for that. So, but listen, brother, I got to get going because we got to head out. I got to head out to do another interview. So I appreciate it. And thank you guys for all the support. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
And this concludes our interview with Steve Brown. Thank you for listening. For more on Tokyo Motor Fist, go to tokyomotorfist.com. To visit my site, please go to rockmusicstar.com, and to see our audio and video interviews, go to glam-metal.com. And a big thank you to Eric Rovner of the Buffalo Award-winning band Nerds Gone Wild for providing our theme music.